Please be seated. So picture it, Cheshire, Connecticut, 1987. I was 14 years old, 4'11", 99 pounds, just graduated 8th grade. I was wearing a Boy Scout uniform, and this being the 80s, I was wearing shorts, but they weren't shorts like we have today, they were shorts. I had braces, and to top it all off, I had a mullet. And not the party in the back and business on top, it was all spiked on top, so it was just a big party. I was what can only be termed as hot. Actually, I think the proper term is hot mess. I was standing in a parking lot in Darcy School, Darcy Elementary School in Cheshire. It's probably around 6 a.m. We were about to leave Cheshire and go on a trip across country with my fellow Boy Scouts, 10 of us. We were heading over to Philmont, which is in Cimarron, New Mexico. We took 5 days to get out there, and we stayed on various military bases, and it being the Cold War, there were plenty of military bases across the country. So we would share our space with active duty Army, National Guardsmen, Air National Guardsmen. We went to see the sights. We were required to wear our hot pants to visit the Arch in St. Louis, and we would get looks from everybody because we were wearing our hot pants. But eventually we made it to Philmont, and we would hike for 10 days in the lower Rockies, which are the Sierra Madre Mountains in New Mexico. Referenced by Paul Simon in Hearts and Bones, if you ever heard that song. We would do various tasks. We'd go rock climbing, rappelling. We shot black powder rifles. After days of eating dehydrated food, we actually had a chance to eat real stew and biscuits, and that just created a love for stew for the rest of my life. It was wonderful. On those 5 days out, though, we traveled by van. Me, being about that tall, was able to sleep in the back of the van on top of the backpack. So I would just watch the road disappear. We'd head out west, and I just watch the east fade into the horizon. And that van, we bonded. We talked. We talked about girls and all of that. And what I'll never get out of my mind or never forget about that van is the smell. 10 teenage boys in a van locked together stinks. And I think we bonded because we were the only people who would actually go into that van. But back to the story, we were hiking. And we'd go up various grades. We'd climb Baldy Mountain, which was bald because of some of the mining. They did strip mining, so all of the vegetation would flow away, and you just had this red outcrop of rocks and loose stone. I think it was about 7,000 feet up. So we did a day climb on a slope, which was still walkable. We weren't rock climbing or anything. And then we would hike some more, and finally around the end of 10 days, we ended up just at the foot of the Tooth of Time. The Tooth of Time is a white stone, basically, that looks out upon Cimarron, New Mexico, and the base camp below. So the night before we were supposed to summit Tooth of Time, I must have eaten something, and I was up at night, all night, pretty sick. But when the time came, we were going to watch the sunrise from the top of Tooth of Time. So in my fevered days, we started the hike. And we got up there in time. First we're under the stars and the moon and whatnot. And we watched the earth come alive as we peaked on the Tooth of Time. We watched this town come alive, from barren streets and streetlights to watching the yellow light of somebody's living room turn on. You imagine that person in their house putting breakfast together. And you start to see cars enter the streets, and the cars would turn their headlights off, and the street lights would go off and extinguish. It was just something to watch. You watch the earth asleep and you watch it wake up. And we also looked over, and we knew we were on our last day. This was our last hike. And right below us we saw our base camp. The base camp is where we started from, and we were about to return there. And we stood on which is essentially a cliff, looked down, and there was the base camp. There was our goal. And it was just we were so close. After 10 days, we were ready. We enjoyed the hiking, but we were just ready to sleep on something softer than the earth. So we took our last view and headed down the cliff. And as we did, we would have to climb down switchbacks. Now, if you're into hiking, you know that switchbacks are what take you down a really steep decline. So you go one direction this way, sort of along the slope, but down gently, and then you go back the other way. If you just went straight down, you'd catch, propulsion would just put you in the trees or something. So we had to go along these switchbacks. And every time we went around a switchback, we got further and further away from our base camp. And this was disturbing to me because I was tired, and I was just on top of that mountain, and that base camp was right there, and now I couldn't see the base camp anymore. So, what looked like a quick hike, we'll be there in a couple hours, turned into a 5-hour trek. And it was frustrating. That saying, it's the journey, not the destination that you need to enjoy. I call bull. I just wanted to get to that base camp. I wanted to get to that cot. But at the end of the 5 hours, we did reach that base camp. And we were exhausted. And the first thing we did was take off our packs and head to the equivalent of a general store, fumbled for my pocket change, bought a soda, and I just sat in the dirt against the building and enjoyed my soda. I was exhausted. I've been hiking for 10 days, and it's probably the happiest I had felt up until that point in my life, because I also felt accomplished having hiked those 10 days successfully. And I learned something then. That we're often taking down paths that are unexpected, that can lead somewhere we never intended to be, but we can still keep our goals. Though the journey to completing our goal might not be a straight road, we are sometimes seemingly taken miles away from where we think we ought to be. We can still reach our goals, and we can still fulfill our dreams. If our call is to preach the gospel, as it was Paul's in this morning's epistle, then we must pursue our call, no matter the twists and turns in our journey to do so. If our call is to earn our Eagle badge, then we must pursue our goal, no matter the challenges that surround it. Because we will all eventually reach that base camp, and no matter the vagaries of the journey, we can attain those goals if we maintain our focus. It's one thing I learned. And actually I learned two things. I lied. First, stay focused on the goal. And second is that Mountain Dew is delicious after a 5-hour hike. So I just want to say thank you to all the scouts here today for all that you do. Your paths and our paths don't always converge. Sometimes they diverge. But we are so appreciative of all that you do for this parish, inside of it and outside in the community as well. Your service to our community is an asset, and it is a wonderful gift to all of us. So from the bottom of my heart, and many here, thank you. Amen.